This is Ford Saeks, and we are coming to you live with another episode of Fordify Live. And today's episode, I'm so excited to be bringing in a colleague, a friend. I'm actually a customer of his from SpeakerFlow, because as a small business owner and a thought leader, one of the biggest challenges we have as visionaries is creating systems. It's doing things in such a way that's duplicatable, because no matter who I've worked with as clients, maybe they're speakers, trainers, authors, or consultants, or even the brands I work with, creating systems are so important. So when I thought about, let's do an episode on systems, who could I think better than Taylor? Taylor, welcome to Fordify Live.
Holy cow, man. It is so good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great. So, I know a little bit about your background, but what was it that drove you to become really the specialist as it relates to systems, and what does that really mean?
Yeah, for sure. I honestly, I don't think this was something like as a kid, you say, I want to be a firefighter. I didn't say I wanted to build systems for businesses.
Yeah, it's like put a fork in my eye, right?
Yeah, right. That's not the thing. But you stumble into these things, solve problems. And so anyway, the long and short of it is I had an upbringing in sales when I kind of first got out of college. And I actually studied science, chemistry in college. And so I was always a fan of, the scientific method and a process for doing things. Everything was always slated A to Z, it just made things repeatable and consistent. So I think that kind of background helped, but I'm not a lab person, very extroverted. I got into sales, and it's actually where I met my business partner, Austin, and we trained sales teams across the nation. So together we probably hired and trained over 1,000 salespeople, and we had a very structured process for how to bring somebody who didn't know how to sell all the way to a high performer, put in a manager for that office, and then kind of rinse and repeat. So I fell in love with the buyer's journey and sales psychology and persuasion and all of those things. And I eventually wanted to segue that to marketing, because sales is a very one-to-one interaction, and how do you take those same principles and then apply them to a one-to-many scenario? So I fell in love with e-commerce, particularly back in my starting marketing days. So building e-commerce brands, products, and more particularly high ticket offers online. Like Ford, something that blows my mind is a brand can be so strong that somebody buys something, swipes their card, never talks to a human being for $15,000 to $20,000. Like think custom furniture or something to that effect, sold online. How is that even possible? So I went down that rabbit hole and I started mastering things like SEO, paid advertising, conversion rate optimization. And I eventually started turning these brands around to be highly profitable, selling things on autopilot with very lean teams. And it was all because systems made that possible. Automation, CRMs, customer data, intent data, all of the things successful marketing companies need to help their clients.
Right.
Systems are a huge part of that. So I fell in love with the idea of systems. I think it was kind of subconscious back in my college days, but when I really kind of the gears clicked when I was doing all the marketing, that this is all possible because things are on a conveyor belt, and then they become predictable. And now I can tell you how much a newsletter sign up is worth, and how much this product's sale is worth, and the lifetime value of things. And you gain sleep at night. You don't have to worry about where the money's coming from, because your business kind of runs on a conveyor belt. So I've become infatuated with systems ever since.
Yeah, and I've always, as a marketer, I started out in direct response and direct mail way before a lot of our viewers were even born. And then of course, when digital became, I was known as an internet marketer before that was a bad word. Right now, internet marketer means get rich quick, and it's not the same.
Right.
But it's really about, so if you're thinking about the listeners and our viewers today and the challenges they have, and for those of you watching live, if you have any questions related to how do you create the systems, where do you go, what tools to use, enter them in the chat. We're having a live open conversation here. So we want to, if there's any questions or comments you guys have, put them in the chat. But let's be clear on what the problems are with systems. I have a term called delegation without details equals a disaster, right?
Amen.
Because, and I'm classic. If my team who's watching this right now, I've got Alex in my room. I won't switch the camera. In my producer, they all laugh at me because I'm the first person to say, well, just this will only take 10 minutes. Just go ahead and do it. And the back end. And I know you work with a lot of high challenging clients. Some people would call them PITAs, PITA, pain in the, you figure it out.
Sure.
I know that's my word, not Taylor's, but cause I'm a PITA in a sense that I call Taylor, we want our forms to integrate with Zoho. Taylor, we want this, and to understand workflow. So we know there's the problem. The problem is in today's economy, in today's fast-paced economy with AI and ChatGPT and all these other things that are happening, systems are even more important than they were yesterday because people are having to work with less. They're having to do more with less. They're getting paid more. They're wearing multiple hats. They have to be able to move fast. So systems become critical. And the three buckets of systems for me are marketing and sales buckets, right? Operations, and then finance and accounting, because operations is delivering whatever the product or service is, but finance and accounting is being able to use data-driven decisions. And so if you don't have systems in place and they're not all talking to each other, then you have problems. So where should someone start or to identify where they might have a challenge in their systems?
Yeah, oh man, that's a great question. And I love that you broke that down. We actually have a very similar definition of those three buckets. We call it growth, ops, and admin. Admin being HR, finance, legal, all those things. There's also a fourth bucket, though, that I think gets forgotten about in the lens of systems. And this is something we coin as the leadership bucket, which is things like what's your vision for the business, your strategic planning, the yearly and quarterly prep, the reviewing of your numbers and setting your KPIs and these types of things. And so I think there's that's the kind of overview. And then it kind of distills down into those three, because without the vision, of course, we just end up spinning our wheels and being squirrel chasers. And you can have the fastest ship in the world, but if it's pointed in the wrong direction, like, you're not going to be happy with the business to begin with. And so usually for business owners, my first question for anybody regarding systems is, do you know where you want to take this thing? Because if you don't know where you want to take, truly, like, sit down and, yeah, we all want to make money. We're here to like run a business, but chances are you started your business to solve problems. You care about the impact that you want to have. What does your life look like in 3, 5, and 10 years? And how are you going to make sure that every quarter, every week, every day, you're moving in that one consistent direction? And then now we know, okay, what sales and marketing systems do we need? What ops systems do we need? Because otherwise what can happen, and I think Ford, you've probably seen this among many of the clients you've worked with, but we created this kind of bloated animal that's not serving us at all. And we constantly have to trim fat and readjust our course. And ultimately it's because we didn't have the right vision in place to point the ship in the right direction. So that's the first place I would start.
Yeah, because systems by themselves don't work if nobody uses them, right? I mean,
No.
and I know a lot of companies, a lot of clients, they invest in programs like Infusionsoft. Some people call it Confusionsoft. So if you guys are watching from there, and I know they've changed their name now to whatever the name
Keep,
is, Keep, yeah.
which is
And again,
hilarious for a different reason.
right, yeah. So and again, I'm not bashing anything. We're not here to endorse or demote anyone's products, of course. But the point is, their system on a whole isn't a bad system, but you need a full-time
No.
person to run it. So unless you're going to dedicate a full-time person to run your campaigns and do it, it's not functional. So how I first came in contact with SpeakerFlow, and again, their website's right there on the screen. Oh, I guess I can actually push this little, look, I even did a banner for you. Look at that. So I've got a banner, visit speakerflow.com.
Look at that. Thank you.
But where I first came in is, I've been in the speaking and training business now for 34 years, and I've had several different CRM systems. And, we want to break down a little bit between, tactically, if you're in sales and you're responsible for revenue generation, this is the episode you need to listen to. It might not be the fanciest, sexiest topic in the world, but if you want to make more sales, generate more money, have a bigger impact, you need systems. So it's the byproduct of what you need, right? So it's the consistency. And so I had a CRM system called Act, which I used for many years. And then I went to SharpSpring. I became a certified consultant for SharpSpring, and we did workflows. And it was an agency model that allowed us to create marketing automation for our clients. And it was a good system, but it didn't really do what I wanted as it related to my speaking business. So I came across Taylor and Austin from SpeakerFlow, and I said, okay, guys, what do you do? And they sat down, and I was really impressed with their ability to not BS me. Okay. So they weren't just giving me fluff. They were saying, if you've got this problem and you're willing to take these actions, then we can help you. And so I transferred everything over to Zoho, which is an off-the-shelf CRM system and marketing automation. But what SpeakerFlow did is, since they understood the speaking business, since they understood business, they understood digital marketing, they understood all these different modalities, they were uniquely positioned to be able to come in and solve the problem with much more finesse and nuance that you can get anywhere. So even though I could have done everything and customized everything myself in Zoho, it would have taken me 10 years to do. A small investment for them to do it, to just do it was great. Now I do have clients that are on Zoho and that have used SpeakerFlow, and they've complained about the performance. And I always go back to them, Taylor, and I say, okay, is there something that wasn't set up right, or are you working the system? 100%, not 10%, 100% of the time, they're just not using it. They're not using the system.
It's the biggest challenge.
So the challenge is for them is to say, okay, look, what do they say? A poor craftsman blames his tools, right?
Yeah.
So don't blame the system. Don't blame, a vendor. Look at where are you in the responsibility? So the first thing I would say to everybody listening is, number one, look at the systems you're currently using and rate them on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being they're really effective and 1 being they're not. Then rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. How well are you using that system? So even me, and you and I ran into each other when I invited you to this at the Certified Speaking Professionals Summit, the CSP Summit. And I came up and I said, I'm having a problem when I'm making sales calls. And he's like, well, did you do this? Did you do this? I'm like, no. Well, SpeakerFlow has a whole SpeakerFlow university. So when I left, one of the action steps I put down on my calendar was go back through the onboarding tutorials, because you guys have created tons of great resources. In addition to actually the done for you, you've also got resources, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Behavior is 90% of the equation. Like the technology, yeah, we've built some cool tech, but that's 10% of it, to your point. Like 90% of it is how you're going to use it and incorporate it into your daily life. And a lot of the things that we focus on teaching people outside of just setting the system up for them is how that fits into the workflow so that the behavior sticks as much as possible. Now, there are some people who don't really nail down the behavior right away.
Right,
That's
right.
their own self journey. But
That's right.
I mean, to your point, it's all about the behavior.
So what about share a story with me from someone who had a big transformation? So in sales, for those of you listening, whenever you're selling anything, it's always problem, credibility, transformation, right? So again, this episode's about systems, but if you want to sell anything, I don't care what your product or service is, I don't care what model, whether you're a $1 billion brand or a solopreneur, it comes down to clearly articulating what the problem is, creating some type of credibility, and then letting people know about the transformation. So I'm just giving you that little bonus thing there.
Yeah, for sure. So I had a client. It was actually pretty early on in our days. He's still a client. He's been around for maybe 3.5, 4 years now. He's doing great, $250,000 a year. Had good relationships with bureaus, but had no systems. You never knew when the phone was going to ring. Didn't really know how to engage the bureaus. Didn't know how to engage past clients. It was working out of his inbox primarily. So we get him set up with everything, right? The CRM obviously being the hub, and contracting and invoicing just to save more time, make life easier. That's again only 10% of the equation. One of our core philosophies before I get into the transformation here is that your CRM is the hub to the entire business. Every interaction you ever have with somebody should ideally be logged back into the CRM, right? So every sales call you've had, every task you've completed, every note, every email campaign sent, social media post interacted with, booking, meetings booked, invoices paid, contracts signed. This is notoriously very complicated to do when you're paying for a bunch of disparate applications. So the first mission was, how do we consolidate that under one roof so that you could have that intent data about that customer? So now everything was syncing along and his data entry was getting better. And now he was able to categorize all of his speakers bureaus or all of his past clients. And he's like, wow, I really need to get to that $500,000 mark. Like I got into this business to get to that mark. How are we going to get there? So I say, well, how are you nurturing the bureaus on a regular basis? Or how are you nurturing your past clients? It's like, well, I've never been able to figure out how to get a list of those people. So naturally, we solve that problem. Guess what happens? You're able to find a list of all of your bureau contacts. And now you're able to find a list of all of your past clients. And I say, well, why don't you just touch base with all of your past clients, starting right now, but then once every 90 days, just nurture them, share your research that you do on a regular basis and see what happens. Guess what happened? Almost overnight. I wouldn't say overnight, but 3 to 6 months, of course, of the buying cycle, past clients were coming back around because he was top of mind. He was reaching out to bureaus and just sharing, hey, I got this new piece of research on X, Y, and Z. Share it with your list if you're like. Nothing salesy, just simply being top of mind with the highest value contacts in the database. You do that over a consistent period of time. He's represented by more bureaus now. His past clients come back. He's got the bonus of all the inbound stuff that's still happening for him. And as a result of getting busy, guess what happens? Fees increase. And so now he has reportings and dashboards that tell him who's booking the most business, which bureaus are top performing, which accounts are top performing, how long the buying cycle takes. When you have that much data at your fingertips, you can quickly remove the crap that's not working and double down on the stuff that is. And you can be confident knowing that's going to continue to produce results. So 2 years later into using systems, he's on a path to $750,000.
Yeah, that's great
And
because it's
that's simple.
and I actually know who you're talking about too. So that's good. And it really it comes down to, you know, it's like the Pareto principle, that 80-20 rule, 20% of your efforts produce 80% of your results. And I think
Yeah.
too often I know myself as an expert in direct marketing and digital marketing things, that I like shiny objects, right? It's squirrel. It's like, as soon as there's something new, now it's ChatGPT and AI and all the different AI things that are disrupting everybody's business. But at the end of the day, the fundamental basics are the same. I was on a consulting call this morning with a retainer client, and they sell home services and they're trying to reach the local market, and they wanted to get leads. And I said, okay, well, let's look at the basics. Have you created lead magnets? Have you created these things? And no, they're doing traditional TV and radio and advertising, which is all great mediums. I didn't say don't do it, but there's ways to reach people nowadays because they congregate. So back to the example that you just gave, as a speaker, one of the things that I need to do is to follow that same system that you talked about and that you're working with on the other client, that shows them how to stay top of mind with the bureaus. Now, not everybody who's a speaker trainer should work with bureaus. So that's a whole different topic we can talk about later, everybody. So if you're new to speaking, forget the bureaus. They don't want you anyway because you're not good enough yet and your fees aren't high enough and you're not going to make commission. You need to market directly. So it's not about the market, it's about the methodology. So what Taylor has done is they've looked at what was the highest and best use of that person's time, and how do we create workflows that allow that person to focus on things that are lifestyle friendly that they're going to do. So, if you told me, hey, Ford, you can lose weight, but you're going to have to eat keto, you're going to have to get 16 hours of sleep, you're going to have to do intermittent fasting, you're going to have to eat one meal a day, you're going to have to go to strength training, yoga, and Pilates. And, okay, great. Yes, if I did all of those things, I would lose weight, but I'm not going to do it. And one of the things I like about Speaker Flow and what you've done with Zoho is you've taken all the noise away and you've said, look, do these 5 or 6 things consistently on a daily and weekly basis, and you're going to start getting more results. Sure, there's tons of, I think, doesn't Zoho have like 50 different modules or something? There's 40.
I think it's like 54 applications.
And you don't have to use all of them, right? I mean, it's
meant to be grown into.
Right. The confused mind says no. The more you complicate things, the harder it gets. And one of the things that I learned a long time ago, might have been from Brian Tracy in the 90s. Some of you might know who Brian Tracy is, and he's a friend of mine now, and we've worked together. He talked about the law of complication that says that if you have 3 steps, each step is a complication of 5. So 3 steps, complication of 5, 15. Look at me doing adult math. My poker buddies would be so happy. It's like, I can actually add. Okay, we're good. So then now if you add another step to it, it's a complication of 5. Now it's 20. And if you go from 3 steps to 5 steps, you didn't add 2 steps. You added a complication of 10. The multiplier. So what I like about what you guys have done is you've reduced the amount of steps so that people can really focus on doing the work instead of getting caught up in technology. What do you say to new prospects that are considering doing this, but they say the investment's too high? Like, what does your sales logic say when someone says, "Oh, this is too expensive"? What do you say?
Yeah. Well, I say something to the effect of, well, how much are you spending on all of your other apps? Because there's a couple different buckets, right? There's people who have no systems and people who currently have systems. They say something along the lines, yeah, I have 10 different systems. I'm probably paying, I don't know, $3 to $5 grand a year for that stuff. Okay, well, first and foremost, our investment covers that, like by default, the apps that you get rid of under one roof is covered through, our one-time investment. So let's assume that that's the only amount of value. So in the first year, you're already making money. But the reality is how much time are you going to invest setting up a system that's not designed for your own business? And the answer a lot of the time is, oh, well, I'm probably not going to. And then I say, okay, well, what's going to happen? I'm not going to use the tools. And then I say, then what's going to happen? Like, well, I'm not going to get any of the opportunities that I'm hoping for. Okay, well, then that's exactly the problem. Like, what you're paying for here when you have a company that implements the technology for you, aside from the cost saving of current systems, is you're removing all of the opportunity cost, and you're cutting down on, quite honestly, 5,000
Right.
hours of R&D on a platform that you would never spend the time doing.
That's
So
what I was
it's
saying.
like
Yeah,
we're
there's no way I would do
shortcutting
it.
it,
Yeah.
there's no way you would do it, right?
Yeah.
So we've already put in that time, so you might as well just get something that's turnkey and you can go drive the car off the lot.
Yeah, so you can either learn from your own experience or from other people's experience, right? And
Yeah.
other people's experience is the fastest way. That's why consultants and thought leaders and experts and speakers exist, right? Because you can
Right.
Google everything, or you can go to ChatGPT or some derivative of
Yeah.
that, right? And you can get all kinds of ideas. But the human factor is something that they can't replace, and it's only going to make it even better. So as people think about their systems for business and operations and for sales and marketing, whatever modality, whatever your role is. So if you're watching this and you're a CMO or an executive, well, your role is going to be very different, right? So I spoke in Orlando for a company called Home Franchise Concepts, 9 different brands for home services, and they have a variety of brands. But in the room, I had executives, I had brand leaders, I had multi-unit franchises, I had single unit franchisees, I had new ones and old ones and staff. Well, everybody, if you're thinking about systems, as we tie it back to that, they all have different systems. The CMO has marketing systems. The accounting people have their KPIs and their average transaction values and the numbers, the data-driven decisions that drive it. I know when I spoke to Freddy's Frozen Custard, and these are just things that are topical, top of mind, they actually timed how many people went through the drive-through at lunch and how long they sat from the time they gave their order to they got to the window. And they figured out that if they could save, I'm making these numbers up, so again, I wouldn't give anything confidential away about a brand, but it was something like if they saved 15 seconds from the time it got from the window to get their order, that it would almost like 30% increase of sales for that day. Like it was such, so, but they did that because they had systems in place, right? So
Right.
as an action step for the viewers and listeners and later the readers, when this turns into an article, I would say it's really important to first identify where you are now, what's working, what's not, get outside perspective because you're too close to it. And you're probably most likely a little bit delusional to think what I had to hit a sound effect, but
You had to.
people are delusional, right? I mean, I know that when people have come to you, they've come to you and they tell you one thing and you find out that their impression of what they're doing is a lot less. It's like I'll say when I do sales training, "Oh, Taylor, we've been trying to sell and we just can't make any sales." And I'm like, "Okay, how many people did you call this week?" Well, everybody said no. How many people did you call? 2.
Oh, yeah.
Right? They called 2 people. So
Not how it works.
so that's not data driven. So systems are important. We know what happens if they don't have them. We know why they need them. Where should they start? I know we kind of asked that question, but talk to me more about why Zoho versus some of the other CRMs and marketing automations out there. What made you lean into that one versus Infusionsoft or Confusionsoft? I don't care. I'll say it because that's what I think.
Yep. Sure. Yep.
You know, what made you say that, hey, of all the systems out there, because there's free CRMs and there's, so I just want to say this as I talk real fast. A CRM is one piece of marketing automation. So when we use the term CRM, a lot of viewers may think it's everything. Well, it's not. CRM is your client relationship database. It's your database. It's the hub, but the other pieces are around the wheel. But what made you choose Zoho over all the other ones out there?
Yeah, so it's probably like our up story with Speaker Flow. When we started Speaker Flow, it's not like we said, okay, we're going to implement Zoho, we layer in our own customizations. We're going to sell that as a product. We're going to do ongoing stuff. We had no clue what we were doing. I'm amazed we've even made it this far. So luckily we care enough and the iteration worked out. But honestly, when we first got going, the only thing that mattered to us is how do we make the running of the business as easy as possible? How do we make speaker stay in flow, hence speaker flow, right? So the way we did this is we would work with you one-on-one. So we'd say, Ford, you're using Infusion Sharp Spring, you got Kajabi, Calendly, great. We're going to connect those dots, build the automations, make sure everything is humming along, teach you a workflow for using it. We were tech agnostic. We didn't care what people were using. We'd build the automations using things like Zapier, custom APIs, these types of things. The challenge, though, that we ran into very quickly is one, we were reinventing our wheel over and over again in all of these different platforms. How do I train a team to master every single business technology out there? It's very complicated. The second thing, though, is our clients were left with a small mortgage, right? Because in order to even unlock automation or APIs or things, you need to pay for often the top tier of that platform. And now you're paying for an automation platform. And now you've got 20 other tools. And I mean, we're looking at $5,000 to $10,000 a year plus in the technology fees, which for our clientele,
that's what Sharp Spring was pretty high. Yeah, it got to be.
Yeah, it's pretty high, right?
Prohibitive.
Yeah, and so what was nice about this experience, though, is we had done hundreds of implementations of that tech agnostic way. We've used every CRM, every marketing automation tool, every calendar booking tool, accounting system, all of them. So we had a nice lay of the land. And I don't know how the timing of this worked out. I'm forever grateful for it. But right around the time we kind of had that epiphany, like we need one place to run our clients' businesses. And I'm not just talking like a marketing CRM like Infusionsoft that doesn't handle things like contracting and invoicing and so on.
Right.
I'm talking about something that does all of it, an ERP, which is language that's now kind of trickling down into small businesses. ERP is an enterprise relationship platform, and the biggest companies in the world have these. Sometimes they're powered by out-of-box solutions like Oracle, and most large companies custom build their own internal technology to handle all of the moving pieces, which is incredibly expensive.
It is.
And so Zoho said, well, let's build all of that under one roof. You got CRM, email marketing, contracts, invoicing, social surveys, websites, landing pages. The list just goes on and on and on. And it covers all the buckets of systems, not just marketing and growth, but also operations and admin and HR, and even a place for SOPs and team wikis and things. There are apps and features that no other platform can come close to in the price point in which Zoho is at, which is like $45 per month per user for everything. And so the reason why we kind of chose this path is one, because it encompassed everything. But the second is because it was incredibly cost effective. And the way they make their money is they said to larger companies, here's this foundation with everything you need. It's a blank slate, and you got to customize the living crap out of it to be remotely effective for your business. But you don't have to develop the foundation. There's an asterisk. Any legal employee you have needs to have a user license, even if they don't use it. So Zoho realized a need, but for much larger businesses. And so if they sell this to 1,000-person company, they're making 45 grand a month, no questions asked. It doesn't matter that 200 of them are going to use it. And so we said, well, here's this operating system, completely blank slate, needs thousands of hours of custom development and work on it. They give us access to their code, their API, and everything we need. It's incredibly cost effective and has everything under one roof. And so that's when we said, all right, let's custom build the operating system. And ever since, it's been a happy marriage. And now we're their top tier partners and manage over 1,000 users.
All right. So we got a question from Jenna. She says, do systems link to a boost in employee morale or overall company morale?
Oh, this is a great question. It depends on the type of leader you are, because it all starts from the front, I've heard, or from the top rather. And so for us at SpeakerFlow, systems make my team hum behind the scenes. They love using our SOPs. They look forward to every time we create a new one because it makes their life easier. Our project management system is dialed, which makes their life easier. Our sales team knows who to reach out to, when to reach out to them, because everything is structured. Systems take the thinking out of doing, basically, which is the biggest source of resistance for a team. And so we've seen instances, though, where a leader themselves despises systems. They talk poorly on them. They do not like them. And if your team is hearing that language and now you're going to try and put systems in place without correcting your own mindset first, you might as well not even bother, because it's not going to help you at all. And you need to fix your own mindset first and portray that language down to your team. But in our own example, we love systems. We geek out about them. They make our life so much easier. Our team sees that improvement, and our team as a whole, they are extremely happy when we have new systems in place that make their life easier, or we create. Ford, what teams in the world love reading SOPs? You know of a few?
I know
I
a
don't
few
know of
people,
many.
but not me.
I
I'm
know a
not
few
one of them.
people, but not people. You're not one of them. My entire team goes nuts every time we release a new SOP because it makes their life easier. And when you have that company culture in place and you start layering in systems, you can absolutely see a boost in morale, mainly because they get their sanity and their life back.
All right, so I'm going to put up I just added a banner that I wanted to show up on the screen right now. And so if you're a speaker, trainer, author, consultant, you've got to go. Like when I talk about lead magnets and I was looking for examples of lead magnets, I'm like, holy crap, Travis. Or I mean, Travis, I'm named.
I'll take
Taylor.
Travis, sure.
No, I was thinking something
easier to spell.
Taylor. No, you're good. Yeah, it's like 2 R's to Ford. Taylor, you and Austin have done an amazing job with lead magnets. So 2 things. One, I want our viewers today to go to speakerflow.com/resources because you've got just a ton of free resources on that. You've got the state of the speaking industry, how to be a virtual speaker, how to start a speaking business, how to get gigs, where to get gigs, basic strategy, watertight selling, offer descriptions. I mean, you have, I don't know, 30, 40. I'm scrolling down through
37 now.
37. And so, it's all I can do to get my team and my clients to do one, right? I've got one report. So 2 things. One, it shows thought leadership and it's systemized, right? They understood that in order for them to get business, to build trust and credibility, their system is to give away those free reports, and they have an opt-in. So obviously that's part of it. We don't want to change the topic of this conversation too much because it's about systems. But 2, if you have anything to do with this business, or maybe you're just a meeting planner, it's a great way to help you get some insights into that. So go to speakerflow.com. If you're listening to this on a podcast, speakerflow.com/resources. And that's where you can get no obligation, free downloads and everything you'd want to do. And Devin, need you to go there. I know she's watching. We need to go there. And even though we know a lot of those things, it's not what you know, it's how well you execute. And that's one of the main things I talk about is that even if you're listening to this today as we get ready to wrap up, I know what systems are, everybody, but what systems are you using? So what we've shared today is, 1, you have to identify that systems work. 2, what systems are you currently using that you need to consolidate or get rid of? So you do an audit of all of your systems to identify where the opportunities are to change. 3, get help. If you want to check out what SpeakerFlow does, check out SpeakerFlow. If you want to check out what Prime Concepts does, go to Prime Concepts. If you're interested in speakers, you've got our links at the bottom of the page here. So what closing thoughts would you give to people as to wrap up this episode on either some takeaways or just not so much like where they can go, because I've already shared your website, but just what do you feel are some action steps to really help people who maybe they're sitting on the sidelines, but they need to actually get off the sideline and jump in?
Yeah. So I think it kind of goes back to that morale question. It's just the mindset, right? Do you believe wholeheartedly that your life can be made easier? Do you feel like there's friction in your business right now? If it's selling, if it's operating, if it's growing the team, anywhere inside of the umbrella of systems, do you feel like there's friction? If you're like, nah, I'm kind of cooling my business down. I love when the phone just rings. I don't really care. Don't bother. It's totally fine.
Right.
You've got your own system in a way. That's fine. Good for you. But if you're like, I've got crap to do, I have revenue goals to meet, I know that I'm experiencing more friction than I should, I'm not in my zone of genius, sit on it and think about how your life can change and what you want it to look like. And from there, reverse engineer what systems you need in place to make that possible. It all starts with your commitment to yourself to make this transformation happen. Because just like to Ford's point earlier, losing weight, it's not always easy. Building systems, it's terrible sometimes. It is not easy. Technology doesn't talk. It can be frustrating. You're a highly visionary and creative type of person. And quite honestly, we hear all the time that some people just don't want to even bother with systems. You have to get to a point where you tell yourself too bad because it's necessary in order to hit your goals. And once you have that level of conviction about it, that's when you're ready to really start dialing it in, because it's not a switch. It takes iteration. Your systems always evolve with you, but it's a mindset that you carry from now all the way until the end of your business. And that's what puts it on a conveyor belt.
Well, thank you. A shameless plug. We meet Wednesdays at Fordify Live at 11 a.m. Central on 3 different platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. So make sure you tune in and subscribe. If you want to watch the replays, you can go to fordify.tv, which has been on the footer ticker at the bottom of the page, and you can do that. So anyway, Taylor, thank you so much for taking the time. I know how busy you are with all the crazy emails that I send and my team sends. So I appreciate you jumping on the call and sharing some unique insights. If you're even considering growing your business, you definitely should check out what they have to offer, not just in the thought leadership world. They also do it for others, but certainly if you're in a thought leadership, anything on that umbrella, I highly recommend you check out SpeakerFlow. And no, I don't get an affiliate commission. This isn't a joint JV deal where I'm getting a commission for sending leads. I believe in the product. I wanted to have him on to share that. So that's it for now. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you being here. And I'll see you next time on Fordify Live.